Please write me in WhatsApp. Okay, chalo, let's get started, everybody. Please, let's get started, everyone. Okay, we are starting with very interesting topic. Please put your entire attention. Okay, the remaining of the session right now, microservice. Some important discussions definitely will happen in interview time. Okay, chalo guys, let's get started. Let's get started. We are going to discuss about microservices. So guys, everyone, 1.5 hours done. We took a 5 minutes break, so we refreshed. So let's start up fresh, thinking very cleanly. Okay, microservices. Okay, the concept is pretty simple. Somehow people might have a bit confusion here and there, heard about it in bits and pieces. We will put everything into a proper clean perspective today. So please put your entire attention. And on top of this, yes, you can have very confident conversation during interview time. Okay? And definitely they will ask about all these basic things. So be clear on these things. Okay. Now what is required? Please understand. In the week number 1, day number 5, we discussed that Agile is a software development life cycle. Nothing but what process you will follow for developing software. That is Agile, right? And then there is a system for that process. Step 1 ye karenge, step 2 wo karenge, right? That means for building a project, there is a process to be followed, and that is where Agile comes in picture about how to do end-to-end project work. And it's like that. Whenever we build a technical system, okay, every company is building so many projects across the globe. So automatically, some level of standards has to be there for that also. That is nothing but whenever we build a technical system, systems should have some architecture. Okay, what is an architecture? Putting it simply, okay, every project will have many pieces of software. We will understand all these things one by one. Every project, let's say this payment system that we are building, it's not just one system. It is one system with multiple small parts. Just observe here from this diagram itself. Unknowingly, we did not discuss it, but just check it out. One big project of payment, already so many parts started to come in picture. Some client application came, our payment system came, PSP is coming. In client application right now, we don't even know the client application internals, but we can say they have a front end, they have a back end. With regards to this payment system, right now we have not even opened this central box. Here, so many much more other software pieces might be there. And that makes the entire architecture. We will be now drawing those pieces here. There are so many parts of the system which interacts with each other. For example, in PSP, there is a payment gateway, there is a merchant onboarding, there is a settlement, there might be XYZ. Again, parts of the systems are there, and interaction has to be there among all this. So guys, please understand, in all the projects, which generally is happening in the current times, distributed nature projects are there, large, big scale projects are there. It will have lot of parts into it, lot of pieces of softwares into it, and these softwares will communicate to one another. Now, automatically, some standards are required because every developer across the globe is building some project, and every project is different from one another. Why processes like Agile is required? For same reason. All companies do software development. If there is a standard in that, it will be easy to develop software. Similar concept is applied here also. Every company is doing a technical project development. All the projects that people are doing has lot of parts of softwares. How these parts should be designed, how they can communicate to one another, that defines architecture. And every project is going to have a project architecture. And when you are defining a project architecture, let's say every project follows their own way. That's a wrong way to do it. The way agile is standardizing the way of software development, like that, some architectural style is required for developing technical standards, for developing technical architectures. And every project is going to have a technical architecture. On top of the technical architecture, then you do your low-level coding. But firstly, a high-level system, concreteness should be there. And every project will have that. If there is no standard in the world, every project will become chaotic. So that is where some smart people in the world, and guys, IT industry is a very old industry now, 30 plus years onwards, it is running, and new systems are coming. People made a lot of mistakes, then they came up with better systems, and it will continue to evolve. As long as the IT is there, customers are using the products, there is no one final solution. It will evolve. There is always need will change. Somebody else will come with a better system and it will evolve. So the way agile is a way of working for project, like that, every project is going to have some technical architecture. How to design that? A standard for that is required. That is where some technical architectural standards are existing in the world. For developing technical architecture, certain set of standards are available in the world. And everybody tries to understand and tries to follow as much as possible to these standards. Okay. The common things which you will be aware is, yes, monolith. Next, SOA, monolith architecture. Next, service-oriented architecture. And next, in the same line, these things were still far more earlier. And then a point came where microservice architecture came into picture. What is microservice architecture? Again, some principles, some guidelines of how to design a good system. So architecture related standards are available as part of this microservice architecture. And they saw some problems in the previous ones and they came up with some ways and it does something around it. We are going to now discuss that part. Okay. Understand these few things, guys. What happened? Whenever standardization of something needs to happen, it is not a small job. You're trying to build a standard which will be globally used by the world. It is a lot of work with a lot of complexity. And so many IT companies, so many smart people, and following one standard, you can imagine how big effort that could be. Global accepted standard about architecture. Who is going to define that? Who is the authority in the entire world? Who is that genius who will define that global standard? It's not possible, right? Everybody will have their own views. If I am coming from a project, I will have my experience view. Somebody else will say that. And it's a big population of the world. Defining a standard at that scale, it's not a joke. It takes time to form, to adapt, to understand, and then to live with that. And then changes are also very hard. So what happened? In early times, right? People started discussing about microservice architecture. Okay. Maybe around 15 years ago itself. It's a very concept which was there, initiated long time ago. Okay. And then around 2012, 2013, very serious discussion started happening about microservice architecture. This, that. In the project, we should do it like this. In the project, we should do it like this. Some people were understanding it. Some were like, no, they were making some other sense of it. And then what happened? This was one of the major reasons. Confusion state. Nobody knows what's the right and the best way to do something. Because of that, SOA architecture was very badly used by the entire world. And that is the reason SOA is not being adopted in the current times. It really backfired like anything. Earlier, monolith had some problems. People thought, oh, that's a very big problem. Let's solve it. SOA came into the world. Service-oriented architecture came in the world. But there was so much confusion with SOA. Okay, what is the right way to do anything? So 10 people are saying 10 different ways of doing it. Standardization did not happen. That rules, regulation never got properly written. Different people, different understanding, entire systems messed up, and then people started facing problems with SOA. And then some smart guys came together and realized microservice is further improvement on top of SOA with certain nice features. But again, there is confusion in the society about how to build a microservice architecture based system. And that smart guy was Martin Fowler. Maybe some spelling might be there here and then we are going to check his name and other details also. He paired up with one more guy, and these guys defined some attributes, some rules, some principles for microservices. This was the nice article and post which they did. And that was published in the year 2014 onwards. And that single article basically led to a big revolution where it was further processed and absorbed and understood and then enhanced. And finally, those rules are what is nothing but the core essence of what microservices. Any project, there are around 9 rules, 9 attributes, 9 rules they defined and said any project which is following majority of these rules, we are saying they are following microservice principles. Please understand, they defined it as guidelines. They are not enforcing every project may everything should be done, because guys, project to project situations will be different. Smart team members are there. They need to think what to do in this moment. Does this microservice principle really make sense to apply in this case, or we should not do it right now? It's a recommendation, it's a guideline, and still team has the power to make a decision otherwise. So the rules which were provided by Martin Fowler and one of the other team member, these were given as a guidelines, said take it as a direction and a reference. While trying to build technical architectures, consider these thought process. Try to implement as maximum as you can. Your life will be simple. And if you are following as maximum of these principles, that means you're nothing but building a project using microservice architecture. That's how the background of how this vibe started. And currently, you might just hear everybody talking microservice, microservice, because it is now widely adopted. But there are some changes happening in the current times also. There are people realizing there are certain problems with microservice. Should we go back to, okay, modular monolith concepts? Modular monolith concepts is again a bit picking back again. So industry is going through a lot of here and there. We need to be aware what is happening, understand what works, and then be in trend with the changing trends of the market. Okay, and if you can really define a system for the world, yes, very welcome. Anybody with a nice thought process can add value to the world and have their opinion. And if it's something really good, it will be adopted as well, right? So yes, it's going to a phases. But yes, microservice is a very commonly used term in the current time. Always, majority of the people are saying implement like this. There are some concerns here and there. Something becomes a bit more problematic. In such cases, people decide, no, we don't want to follow that. We want to follow this approach in this case. So projects are also doing a mixed kind of approach. But we need to understand the base of microservice architecture is really very logical and makes a lot of sense. So we need to understand, what does this mean? What it means to build a project with microservice architecture. Again, guys, it's a concept. There might be n number of ways of implementing it. And guys, in every technology, people are implementing it. So don't think it is a Java Spring Boot concept. No, it's a project architecture concept. And architecture doesn't depend upon programming language. These are big parts of how the standard should be. So regardless of programming language, yes, these are concepts. Microservice is basically a guidelines, concepts, a thought process of how to build something. These are concepts. You need to first understand those concepts. Then you need to think how to implement it in your technology. Both are two different things. Okay, and that is easy part, implementation. Sometimes for implementation, multiple ways might be there. Some is having this as good approach, some is having that as good approach. You need to figure out whichever one is more suitable for you and then make a decision to use that. So first, conceptually, you need to understand what microservice principles are. When you say a project is following microservice, means exactly what. You need to have conceptual understanding. Then you need to have that level of clarity, okay, how we can do it. There might be some multiple ways also at times. From there, you need to figure out whichever is the right way of dealing with things. Okay, so this basic background about microservice and what these attributes are, again, I will be sharing a quick document with you, and we will now discuss some of the key things today. Remaining discussion we will do tomorrow, but guys, it is going to be intensive discussion. So please put your full thought process and mind here. Okay, sure. Let's get started, everybody. Very interesting and very important. Okay, let me close this. Let's go back here. This document, I will be sharing it today after the end of the session itself. Microservice architecture. And then while we are understanding this, we will build our project architecture also. Okay, साथ में both work we will be doing. We will understand microservice, then we will apply these principles into our project and even understand that part. So for interview, you will be ready to explain how microservices is followed in your project as well. Plus, so domain knowledge came. What is the project about? Yesterday we understood payment related integration, how the technical flow is, some domain knowledge is there. Now architecture knowledge comes, then comes feature knowledge, and then implementation knowledge. In interview, these six things will be there. In that, now what was complex, not complex, how did you do problem solving, coding, but there is a pattern for your project discussions. What is the project about? Some things about domain, some things about architecture, then what are the features, then what did you develop, and then your hands-on coding and everything will come. High level implementation, low level implementation, part by part, everything goes through. So which we will be discussing as we go through. So now is this topic. Let's get a basic definition. What kind of systems? We call it as a microservice based system. I have not written this. This is taken from Martin Fowler itself. I've just taken a screenshot of that and added here. Martin Fowler defined and upgraded the definition and made it available in a single paragraph for anybody to understand what a microservice based system is. I've just taken a reference and provided it here for you. Okay. Microservice architectural style is an process to develop a single application as a suite of smaller services. We want to develop one single application payment system, but we will be doing it as suite of smaller services, nothing but internally multiple smaller services should be there. So not everything should be one project, internally suite of smaller services. Some smaller services should be there internally. Okay, very good. Each service running in its own process. Try to remember, when we start our Spring Boot application, it occupies a process ID. Every process that will start captures a separate memory. It has a separate port number. That is what this point is saying. Microservice simply says, you want to develop one project, but break that project into smaller services. Multiple services, smaller services. Each service should have its own process. Nothing but every service should be executed separately, executed independently. It should have its own process ID, should occupy its own heap memory, and should have its own port. That is what meaning running it as a process separately. Any service can run anywhere on any machine in its own independent process. One line itself is explaining us what microservice actually means. Let's dig more. What is microservice? What do you say a project following a microservice principle? Microservice architectural style is an approach of developing single application as a suite of smaller services. Means don't develop everything in one, break it into smaller services such that each service runs in its own process. Its own process means occupying a separate memory, having its own process ID, and occupying its own port as well, not interfering with each other. Next, they want to talk to each other, right? Every project running a separate service, they want to talk to each other. How they should talk and interact with each other. That talking and interaction is going to have, and communicating, talking to each other with lightweight mechanism, generally HTTP based API calls. So when service wants to talk to each other, generally making a call, API call over HTTP protocol, kind of lightweight. Okay, next. So that is the simple one-liner definition of what microservice is. Don't develop the project in one go, break it into smaller services so that every service runs independently and they communicate over a lightweight protocol. That means building a microservice-based system. One-liner definition of that. Further you elaborate, there are more principles. Automatic question comes, right? Okay, don't develop the entire project in one go, break it into services. Question comes, how these services should be designed? How do we decide which functionality goes in what services? That's where the second statement is saying. The services are built around business capability, nothing but based upon functionality. You need to define that, and independently deployable by fully automated deployment mechanism machinery. What does this mean? Full DevOps support should be there for running a microservice based system. Automation should be there for running a service based system. Without these two, it is really hard to maintain a microservice based system. So they defined a second principle for that. Every service is built around functionality and is independently deployable. There is no relation. Deployment of service 1 and service 2 can be completely independent. But for deployment, full-on automation system of DevOps, that's where DevOps is so much hyping. More and more customers are coming and DevOps ka market is also improving. Load is more. During COVID times, all of a sudden, the entire world switched to digital. Traffic, everything spiked, right? A lot of automation and mechanisms were required to support that kind of traffic. Somehow after COVID times, IT expected maybe this digital movement will stay, but still it a bit relaxed down as well after the end of COVID era. But understand the point, when load comes, without automation it's not possible to work. Microservice is saying, before microservice in one project itself, everything was there. Now you are saying break the project into 10 systems. How do you manage these 10 systems? Coding, deployment, build, automation. It cannot be done manually. It has to be done in an automation manner itself. So microservice says, you build the services around the functionality and it should be deployed independently with full automation capability. Automated deployment machinery. Matlab DevOps ka full end-to-end automation support should be there. Next, there is bare minimum centralized management for the services, which may be written in different programming language, blah, blah, blah. Means don't try to centrally control this. Bare minimum central management for these services. Don't try to define rules and try to control all of these services. What does this mean? One service you feel we want to implement it in Python. If that is the right thing to do, go ahead doing that. One service you feel Golang is really right for this use case, everything else is Spring Boot microservice, this is perfect for Golang related use case, okay, go ahead using Golang. That central control, don't try to do it. That's what microservice is saying. Give the freedom to the developers to do the latest things which is right for the project. That is again microservice principle. And yeah, fine, it can be developed in any programming language, which may be written in different programming languages, not specific to any language, and using a different data store technology, not applicable just for SQL, NoSQL. It is basically for any kind of data store, for any programming language. That's what is a core definition. What does it mean to build a microservice system? It means this. Don't develop everything as one go. Break it into smaller systems. These smaller systems should run as processes, everything independently, and communicate with each other. using lightweight protocols. And this services should be built around functional capability, deployed independently using automation, and should not be controlled centrally, give flexibility to the team. And that is what applicable for any programming language, any database structure, and that is building a microservice system. So nice paragraph clarifying